Ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to be here, and it's great to have the opportunity to discuss with you how we can strengthen the leadership of the middle-standing enterprises here in Korea and elsewhere. Which consequences has the digital age for us as a person and as managers? In the last 2 centuries, we have had 3 industrial revolutions, from the steam engine revolution to the mass production and the electronics and automation. It happens around 50 or 60 years, and now we have the 4th, the digital revolution, where everything will change. My name is Weber, which means weather, textile maker, and my family members 200 years ago has been attached by the first industrial revolution, the steam engine. A couple of 100,000 textile makers, my family relatives 200 years ago lost their jobs because the steam engine invented in the UK destroyed the individual family, small family businesses like textile makers. So my family name, it really has something to do with the first industrial revolution. This is my grandfather, Albert, who grew up during the first industrial revolution and started his career during the second industrial revolutions. Which consequences had this revolution to him, Albert, as a person and later as a founder and manager of a middle-standing enterprises? He has been a founder and a startup of middle-standing enterprises. My grandpa, Albert, gave me 2 lessons. The first lesson was be open, be entrepreneurial, and be flexible. Albert was born during the steam engine revolution. You see this picture here is a steam engine model. He was attracted and fascinated in his early 20s. His father's job, my great-grandfather, he was a signal man at the railway company, and when he was a child, every day, a couple of times, those huge steam trains passed his home. So this young man, Albert, was attracted by the steam engines, trains, and so mechanics came into his mind. I want to be a young mechanician. For the 13th son of a signal man, it was quite a challenge to be trained as a mechanician. So he was motivated, but we will come back to him later. I go with 2 more steps and tell you something about his life, about his career, and about him, how industrial revolutions changed his life. So I have 4 points. The role and importance of middle-standing enterprises in a balanced economy, the 21st century as an age of uncertainty, and how to manage middle-standing enterprises. And to end, I will give you 5 memos, 5 advices for Korean middle-standing enterprises. We know nowadays that a balanced economy has competitive and strong big groups. Big groups are important, no doubt about that. But as well, as we see in the German economy case, we need well and strong and competitive middle-standing enterprises and even a small enterprises sector. To a balanced economy as well, we need a lean administration on the governmental sector and a mixture of non-profit organizations as well with some entrepreneurial spirit. We call it nowadays social entrepreneurs. We need all of that for a balanced economy. Europe is, for example, very fragmented, where I come from. Some countries have a mixture of small and medium-sized companies and big companies, Some are more relied on bigger groups like the UK, the US, or if we take from Europe to go to the US as well, or France. But Germany and some parts of Italy are more well known for their middle-standing enterprises. Let's have a look to some statistics. You see here the world top exporters. Germany, with 80 million people, has $1.3 trillion for export. Compared to the US and China, we are in quite a good position. And even the Republic of Korea, with around $500 trillion is in a very good ranking with around 50 million people. So if we take the Fortune 500, the 500 biggest companies in the world, you see Germany only has 28 big companies. And for example, the US, look at the number 1.5, Germany 1.3, has 134 big companies in the Fortune 500. That shows exactly when we talk about Germany is strong, has a strong Mittelstand, we say, middle-standing enterprises. We don't have, in average, not many big groups, but a huge number of middle-standing. This is the gap between those two numbers, 28 to 134. This explains the middle-standing enterprises. And the middle-standing enterprises in Germany has a lot of examples. The best middle-standing enterprises, we call them, Hermann Simon brought it on the management map, the term, we call them hidden champions. We have around 1,300 or 1,400 hidden champions in Germany, which means we have almost 50% of all hidden champions in the world. So those strong middle-standing companies give an explanation to this chart with the top exporters. Okay. Just to mention, Switzerland and Austria, two more German-speaking countries, are very strong as well in hidden champions numbers. So, to the example, Germany means you can see it's an economy with very strong, medium-sized, and even small companies. We have almost the half of the hidden champions, and we have more than 300,000 companies, middle-standing and small enterprises, that are active in export. This is a huge number of middle-standing enterprises, not only are working for the domestic market, but also are active in export. And around 5,000 of those Mittelstand family, not the hidden champions, there exist more champions, let's say on the second or on the third level, or on the second or on the third league of middle-standing enterprise. Almost 5,000 of those middle-standing enterprises, mostly family businesses, have a turnover of more than 50 million euro. So let me come back to my grandfather's first job. When he left school, he was attracted being a mechanician, and he went to a company. You see one of his first products he produced. It was a knitting machine, a knitting machine maker 10 kilometers away from he grew up. And he entered to this company, and he did an apprenticeship and learned to work to produce knitting machines. This company is founded during the first industrial revolution and was able and successful during the second industrial revolution. And, by the way, it still exists up to today and is a hidden champion. This company is called, you see the product below, the very old one, is a knitting machine produced by Stoll at the city of Reutlingen, which is today has around 300 million euro sales, active in 70 countries. 90% of all those knitting machines from Reutlingen, from Stoll, go to Asia, 90% of the customers are Asian customers. So you see in this case, with my grandfather's first job, this company is still existing during the last 150 years and was able to adapt to different industrial revolutions. And that's an example for German companies. Be open, be flexible, and look what is going with the industrial revolution. How can we adapt to, let's say, automation? The last product of Stoll knitting machines is an automation, and they are still at the moment working to adapt to the fourth industrial revolution with the Internet of Things and the digital machines. So they're still working on that, and it's quite interesting. We come back to my grandpa later. So my second lesson from my grandpa is as well, success is fragile, but don't rely on it. Why? He, as a young man, quit Stoll after some years. He left his company. He was attracted by the most excellent sector of fine mechanics. It was watches. So he left Stoll. This company still exists. But my grandfather's company, he went to Switzerland. He did training on how to be able to produce watches. He came back to his hometown, started in his own business as an entrepreneur. He had up to 30 employees. A son of a signalman had success and had his own business, had one of the first car in this small town where I grew up. So he was quite successful. But then he had to close his company in the 1950s. Why? He didn't see the third industrial revolution, which was electronic revolution, automation, and this is one of the last watches of my grandpa. It's a fine mechanic watch, and the watches we have nowadays is, except some luxury products from Switzerland, are quartz watches. And my grandfather didn't see the third industrial revolution. He had to stop his company, so I have just some machines from him in my family home, but there is no more production since 60 years. So it's what an irony. You can say he got better and better as a mechanic. He did excellence in mechanic, and the niche company where he did his training, the knitting machines, they survived, but the excellence of fine mechanic didn't survive. That's an irony of industrial revolution in case of my own family. So to conclude, the German medium-sized and small companies are employers of almost 2/3 of the German workforce, and we have this special type of education in Germany, the apprenticeship, the dual education, though they employ more than 80% of all apprentices in Germany. That's really quite interesting. So the importance of middle-standing enterprise for a balanced economy is they are entrepreneurial and have a strong commitment. They are open for new trends and driving the innovation like Stoll, adaptable to change and survive a crisis. I showed you this example, supporting growth in the local community. This company is still at Reutlingen and supports the local community. But the challenge is for a small and medium-sized, for a middle-standing enterprise, to do the networking with large businesses. So be aware of this risk that will appear. So to conclude is, we have to support in a society, as human beings, in our neighborhood, our middle-standing enterprises. You see here the examples, the logos from Germany. Aktionsprogramm Zukunft Mittelstand. It has been mentioned by you this morning. You have examples from India, from Singapore, and we have here from KIAT, building through the creative economy here in Korea. So my second point We live in the 21st century in an age of uncertainty. What is an age of uncertainty? An age of uncertainty is an age of radical change, like in my family history. It's the age of the fourth industrial revolution. It's the age of, you can say, complexity. How do we react as a manager, as a person, if we are concerned with such an industrial revolution in our life? For me, as a personal experience from my 30s, I've been in the 1990s, I've been a clinic director, a clinic manager in the healthcare sector. And my personal experience in the 19s was in the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. I will show you the example. The knowledge is emerging. Huge knowledge in healthcare. Extremely we have more and more knowledge. We have new skills. We have even new professions into healthcare. You have almost 100 different medicine specialists. We have new competitors. We have new technologies. For example, in the healthcare nowadays, if a doctor has an X-ray diagnosis, we have artificial intelligence machines, computers, that help doctors to see when they see your X-ray, what can be the diagnosis. We already have machines that decide with us what will be the healthcare for you. So this is a huge, it's like, for me as a clinic manager, it was like climbing up a hill, and when you are at the top of this hill, you think, I have reached the hill, so now I can relax a little bit. No. At the top of this hill, you see a lot of more new hills which you should have to climb. So there is no more relax for us in a management position. We have a lot to do. This fourth industrial revolution attacks every one of us, and we have to change our life, our way of observing. Usually, if you observe, you open your eyes. But sometimes open your eyes means you don't see anything. If you do it more open, you don't see it. What's on this picture? Just close your eyes a little bit. Like if there is some rain or a little bit foggy, then you begin to see something. So what I want to say with this picture is change your observation patterns. We have to change how we observe. An example. Some of you are playing chess. Chess is one of the most complex games in the world. There is a mathematician, Claude Shannon, and from him we have the Shannon number, and you see a 10 grade 120 possible moves when you play chess. This is a number, an unimaginable number. And a lot of great grand chess masters from Russia, for example, if you ask them how many moves do you calculate, and what do you think? How many moves do chess grandmasters calculate? If you see this number, do they calculate 5 or 10 moves before they do their next move? What do you think? Just tell me, how many moves do you think a great grand chess master is calculating? Please, one number from you? No, 1 or 2. A great grand chess master is not calculating moves. Why not? It's impossible to calculate much moves. The only thing, if you interview a great grand chess masters, they try to build up the game, to make it complex, the game, to keep the complexity of the game. Because if the game is going too simple, then you will lose the game. But if you build up the complexity, keep it complex, you will win. There will be one move, many times it takes 40 moves and then the game is over. Between the 30th and the 35th move, there is a chance to win. So, but the whole thing is for a great grand chess master not to simplify, to keep the complexity. A second example, this is Ray Kurzweil from the Research and Development Department of Google. He has calculated the exponential innovation curve. He says in the 19th century we had more innovations like 900 years before. In the first 20 years of the 20th century we had more innovation than in the 19th century, and he says, artificial intelligence, we will have 1,000 times more innovations in this century. Radical change, uncertainty, complexity. Why? Artificial intelligence. That's computers will develop inventions. If we take a leaf and fold it, how many times, if we have a huge piece of paper, how many times have we folded this paper to get to the moon? 100 million times? How many times? What do you think? Maybe someone has heard this example of exponential curves. So this paper won't get us to the moon. I fold it 5 times, 6 times, 7 times. How many folds? 100 millions? 100 billions? No. 42 times a piece of paper and we are on the moon. Why? It's 0.1 millimeter. And if you double it, the exponential makes it that you reach 35 folds, makes nothing. But then it doubles. And then the 43rd move is 350,000 kilometers and we are on the move. It's unimaginable. For our human brain, it's the exponential curve is not, you cannot imagine that. And that's what's happening in the 4th Industrial Revolution. There are so many things, like with my grandpa, like with my family name origins. There is so many things going in this century that we have to learn that there is a big industrial revolution. The greatest danger in times of turbulence is not the turbulence. It is to act with yesterday's logic. That's what's happening, what we do. Because of my grandfather's case, the success with watches and the success with fine mechanics brought him to the excellence of fine mechanic, and that was his mistake. It's not a point to be an excellent fine mechanic. It has to be someone who brings the excellent product with a special price to the customer. And the customer is not caring whether it's a mechanic or an electronic watch in the medium price segment. That was his mistake. So yesterday's logic was for my grandpa to be the best fine mechanic. And that's his mistake. Knowledge worker is a new term brought up by, as well, from Peter Drucker, the inventor of modern management. What is a knowledge worker? In 1957, he wrote an article or in one of his books. A knowledge worker is someone who is different from the shop floor worker at Henry Ford's time at the assembly line from 1913. So at the assembly line, the mass production industrial age, we had workers where thinking was separated from doing. You had engineers like Henry Ford, they thought, and you had shop floor people, more than 90%, nor 95% of Ford company in the beginning of the 21st century. They didn't think, they did. And nowadays, an automotive company or wherever you go, more than a majority of the people in your company are not anymore separated thinking from doing. They think as well when they do. So there is a new type of employee in the company, in every company, and we call it the knowledge worker. A knowledge worker is changing the concept of a knowledge worker, is changing management. But still, we have a lot of companies where we do manage in a way like in the steam engine or in the mass production time, a pyramid structure of managing. And that's wrong, and we won't survive that. So Industry 4.0 is based on technology, based on knowledge, skills, thinking, cooperation. So the complexity is growing. The uncertainty is growing. That's the point. Every revolution brings us more complexity. Some examples. Knowledge work will grow, smart factories will emerge, human will interact with machines, machines with an artificial intelligence will interact with humans. Some examples from my university, we have a department of smart data systems. Here some students that go in a simulation room, and here you have some plant engineering students that have projects and they do it and the computer, and then they go into this plant, a virtual room, and see whether what they planned is working or not. That's a simulation. We have the Formula student team, racing cars among competition among students all over Germany, and then they see whether the engine they constructed fits into this mechanical engineering plant car. Or we invite customers. This man is a farmer from the agricultural tractor. In a virtual tractor, he's sitting there, and this tractor has been constructed by engineers, and the farmer, the customer, is going into this simulated tractor, and he says, he's turning around and around, no, this button is not bad when I'm driving, I need a button more here, and I don't see much my equipment behind me, so please make it a little bit narrower. So we can see with the new techniques, we can learn about tacit knowledge with customers. It's very important in the fourth digital revolution that the customer is involved in the beginning of the prototype development. So that's really important what we do with our students. Example, automotive. In the pyramidal structure, you have those suppliers that delivered suppliers, and then to the OEM, the brand, the automotive company. Nowadays, it's more a new hub and spoke system where there is a hub, the OEM, and everything is connected to him, and the information are not bottom up or top down, but in between this network. So the entrepreneur always searches for change, responds to it, and exploits it as an opportunity. So conclusion, in an age of uncertainty, looking what happens, not why it happens. You don't have enough time to analyze everything. Time is running. To know not everything is normal in this fourth revolution, and therefore looking what happens and not why it happens. This is the situation for us and for the management. So where do we focus on? Do we focus on technical innovation? If I have a lot of discussions with engineers in my university as a consultant, or in projects with industrial groups. And if I'm talking with engineers, I hear a lot of times, well, this is a really big problem, we have a technical problem, we have to solve this problem. It's all about technical problems. And when I say, how about communication, how about this conflict among the research and development department and the sales department or the production department, oh, well, that's a conflict, it's just a communication problem. Just a communication problem? The real problem in the smart factory is not only the technology. It's the organizational structure, and it's the people. Increasing the productivity of knowledge worker, that's the real big problem of the modern smart factory. So it's the people, it's the organization, it's the management philosophy that is the leading by example. That's the point to change your organization into an organization of the fourth industrial revolution. It's your mind, it's the mind of the people, it's the mind of the organization. And the technology is a huge problem, no doubt about that. But it's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is the communication and the people and the change in minds. Organizations can then perform when everybody is constantly letting colleagues and every partners know about the insights, experiences, and leaps in knowledge they have just gained. That's the communication problem. And if this point is not happening, your organization will not reach the level to the fourth industrial revolution. Example, Toyota production system, well known, the best in the world. You have this andon cord. So this cord you can pull when you have a problem at the assembly line. They introduced it at my friends at the Daimler plants. They introduced it, and no one in the Daimler factory pulled this cord. They were afraid. At Toyota, it works. People pull it. And then they look for the problem, what's going on. But if you introduce it to a hierarchical system like the Daimler production system, it was, once upon a time, nobody used it. It was never pulled. So, change your management culture, your organizational culture. It's all about people. Hierarchy has a problem. So the first step is your daily view into the mirror. If you enter in the morning in the bathroom and you look into the mirror, it's the mirror view that's changing everything. Am I still a heroic manager, hierarchical? Or am I a post-heroic manager? Am I a control fan or a trust fan? Am I looking with my employees for weaknesses? Or am I looking for strength? Am I a distant person on an ivory tower? Or do I meet my employees as equals? So the mirror view is important. So there is some research about the 100,000 years of development of humankind and organizations. And from the tribal age, the tribal society, we grow as a human being in our organizations. We had those powerful chiefdoms, mafia we call it. We have formal hierarchies, we have effective matrix. 80% of those companies we have in the world have this orange kind of organization form, but we are changing to a more green and teal form of organizations. Here the French theorist Frédéric Galoux wrote a book, Reinventing Organizations. It's quite interesting. You should read it. It's all about the next organization will be an organization with self-management, with self-organizing, and with evolutionary purpose. Okay, so to conclude that point, the new management, as the founder of the modern management, Peter Drucker, said, management is about human beings. We are in a triangle, in an area of conflict among different tasks we have as a manager. We are scientific, we are rational, we should be. But the opposite is true as well. Totally rational brings you away from innovation, creativity, and art. You also have inside your own thinking and deciding, you have to have an art perspective. And as every manager has to have it, you have to learn from trial and error as a craftsman. So it's science, it's craft, it's art, it's a triangle, it's an area of conflict. That's the new kind of management. Quote, "The difference between success and failure is to maximize the potential of your employees. That's the real job of management. An enterprise of self-organizing knowledge workers doesn't need command and control. The key is confidence and support." So you have three choices if you want to prepare your organization for the fourth industrial revolution. Practice radical change, be a pioneer, change everything, change a lot more than my grandpa did, be courageous. The second choice is to do some soft change with zones of experimentation. You have some play fields, playgrounds for some of your people. And the third choice is you start with some tools. You have those three choices, that's all. One example, Buurtzorg is a Dutch organization founded 11 years ago and has nowadays around more than 50% of all nurses in the ambulant Dutch system. Why? Jos de Blok, I know him personally, he has just 21 people for 10,000 nurses in the headquarters. That's flat hierarchy. It's all about self-organizing. Another example, a very old and very famous example for flat and modern kind of management philosophy is Gore. The Gore-Tex, where you have no leaders set by the top management, you are the leader. The leader you are at Gore is defined not by the top management, but by the partners, by the employees, by the associates. So the associates decide who is the leader in our team. There are a lot of examples from Gore. Everything they do is since 60 or 70 years is totally different from what we call management nowadays. But there are risks. If you do it in a radical way, like the American retailer Zappos did it, they did it in a very abrupt way, and 20 to 30 people left Zappos. So it has a risk. If you do it too fast, if you do it too fast, people leave because maybe they don't like it to be working flexible, autonomous, self-organized. You need the right people to develop such a new atmosphere. And Zappos didn't work. It didn't work. They stopped it. They stopped the flat hierarchy project, and it's an example where abrupt and radical change is kind of a fad, and it's risky. But anyway, you have to deal in an area of conflict, you have to deal with contradictions. The second choice is radical soft change. An example here, we have a German publisher edition. They are traditionally producing law books. It's a hierarchical system where the CEO and the management gives control, advice, and is a coach. But they integrated a software team that is offering software in the law sector, and this is totally different, a totally different atmosphere. And the problem for the management is we have to integrate both management styles within one company. So in the one part, you give command and control, and in the other part, you meet as equals. And you have playgrounds, and you have projects like startups. So that's the future of if you take the second second choice, where you have a mixture of both management models. The third one is you integrate Scrum, Lean Management, shop floor management, Lean Startup, and coaching. And that's not the best solution from my point of view. Here a quote from a bank manager who integrated Scrum into his bank in Germany. He was asked by a journalist, what were the biggest obstacles you have faced? The biggest was myself. The biggest challenge was letting go, stepping back, and recognizing that my task in future was to create the fertile group with people which people could achieve the extraordinary. So go back. That was his problem. You have new people. Here in the audience, you have a lot of people from the millennials, from the next generation, and they are different. Here is the chart. The next generation, they look for freedom, they look for flexibility, they work with and not for companies. It's totally different. We have a generation conflict. I see it with my students at Mannheim University. You see it with your generation. You will see it, we will see it in the next decade. This generation, the generation Y or Z, is different. So what is the solution? Just an example for a German company. Trumpf is quite a well-known hidden champion company. They react and give flexibility to their people, to their millennials, to their baby boomers. So the first choice is, it's working hard when you're a beginner, you want to train. The second choice is you are in the family phase where your children are small, you need more time for the family, you have the chance to work less and earn less, and then after the child phase you come back to the company with the normal hour of 40 hours. Or you have the choice, you have the biggest investment of a family, you build a house or buy an apartment, you work hard to pay the amount of the investment. Or the fourth system is you are in your 30s or 40s, maybe the children already left the home, you want to have a tour with your Harley Davidson through the Mediterranean, so you share time to have a sabbatical. So that's what the hidden champions do, to go to be flexible for the next generation and their wishes. So start with micro projects for the millennials. Give them a chance to learn how to work autonomously and how they can discover their tacit knowledge. So I would like to give some advice to you as practitioners of medium-sized companies. And the first memo, the first advice is you have to avoid price competition. So a lot of medium-sized companies are within the price competition, and that's a point you should avoid that. If you are a supplier for the big groups and you're not have a niche and a specialization, and you are in the future of the next fourth industrial revolution, it's a risk for you. So to come back to my grandfather, you can say all those skills I told you that he had to close his watch firm. All those skills survived in Southwest Germany because those 10,000 of employees from the former watch industry, they are now working, and later on in the 1950s, 60s and so on, in another fine mechanic technology. It's the technology of medical industry. So the fine mechanics for if you have a heart attack or something like that, you have a machine that gives you the impulse for your heart. It's invented by former watchmakers. So even if your skills are lost, for example, the case of my grandfather, the skill can survive in the next decade, in the next industrial revolution. So the memo 2 is be focused, and then even your skill can survive. Switch from a watchmaker to a medical technology producer. That would be the advice that I would have given to my grandfather 60 years ago. And then if you are a medical fine mechanic technologist, then go from the beginning global. So look for a niche and sell it in a global market. That's not price competition like my grandfather did it, but to find a niche with your fine mechanic skills, find this niche and go to sales in the global market. There is a quote from a CEO: the best strategy for a Mittelstand manager is don't dance where the elephant dance. Okay, how can you do it in the slides? They are just looking for someone. It stops here. Okay. How can we do it? I discussed it with a friend of mine, Moon Kok-yoon from the Drucker Society of Korea, and former Johan Kimberley CEO in the 1990s and in the millennium. And I just discussed with him, you have a generation, the millennials, generation Y, that you have 2 or 3 million talents that looking for a decent job. So a lot of medium-sized companies, middle-standing companies in Korea could acquire those academic talents, 2 or 3 million young Koreans looking for a job, and you should integrate them. You should train them. You should give them a possibility to maybe have an internship in Germany, in Europe, or wherever, and then you train them, and with their skills, with their communication skills, and their talent and their motivation, then you can have be prepared for the fourth revolution. But there is a Korean taboo for that. The Korean taboo is my child, my son, my daughter should go to a chaebol and not to a Mittelstand company. That's the society, how it has to change. And I think you should, as a father, as a mother, as a grandfather, as a grandmother, if your child is telling you to the next anniversary, I want to start my career with a middle-standing enterprise, the typical answer for a Korean parents would be no. If you have an offer from a chaebol, go to the chaebol. But think about it. It's the society who makes it possible or impossible for a middle-standing enterprise to attract talents. I have an example here, a picture of my daughter. I'm sorry, I can't show it now to you. I have a picture of my daughter, and the slide is called Small is Beautiful. And my daughter came to me. She did for once. She acquired for a German business school. She did it just to do me a favor. But then she came to me, Papa, I don't like to work with management business schools. My passion is art, design. And she said to me, I want to be a photographer, and I start an apprenticeship, not an academic career, a daughter of a professor. And I said to her, what is the duty of a father? I supported her. She started as an apprentice in a middle-standing enterprise as a photographer, not an academic career. So in my personal case, I can tell you, our society in Germany is different than the Korean society. We do it, and I let her go. I let her study, not study, but do an apprenticeship. And it's quite typical. You have even CEOs of hidden champions. They tell to their children, don't start with an academic career, be an apprentice in a company. Learn how to work, how to think in a more down-to-earth way. Okay. So the fourth point, I have some inheritance taxes, but I run out of time a little bit with those technical problems. Maybe we can discuss it later, how to support as a lobby, develop kind of a lobby group to get new laws from your government, to have the possibility with lower inheritance tax to build up equity in your companies. That's absolutely sensible for a middle-standing enterprises, for the second, third, fourth generation to keep the money together and be independent from banks, stock markets, or whatever. We have a broad variety in Germany of financing, and stock market is not the solution for every hidden champion. It's not a solution. For some, yes, but for some, no. Okay, so that's the fold that I did for it. Sorry. I didn't go to the moon with that, but it's the end of my presentation. Okay, so the last memo I want to give you is communicate. Go out, come to Germany, go to the world, look for a niche, and go global. Invest in training your people, your employees, your daughter, your son. bring them, open their mind. That's like the chess grandmasters, be able to work and to deal with complexity. So in the 19th century, we said who works produces. In the 20th century, we said who works plans and produces. And in the 21st century, we say who works communicates. So I come to an end. Be courageous. Build up a subsidiary. Get friends abroad as a middle-standing enterprises. We have a lot of German middle-standing enterprises. They just, with a handshake, they started a partnership among Europeans and Asians, and with a handshake and a joint venture style of being partners among middle-standing enterprises from Europe and middle-standing enterprises from Asia, they started to conquer the world together. Even when they were competitors, there are some cases, even when you are a competitor, you can establish a partnership where you help each other. The Asian are helped to get into the European market, and the Europeans are helped to get in the Asian market. So there are a lot of possibilities. For example, next April, I am at my non-profit organization, Peter Drucker Society. We start also a first conference. You are invited to come, where we meet middle-standing CEOs from Asia with middle-standing CEOs from Germany. So everything begins with a handshake. Everything begins with a face-to-face contacts. Who works communicates. Thank you so much. Kamsahamnida.